There were some major developments yesterday in Congressman Joe Kennedy's challenge of incumbent Senator Ed Markey in the state of Massachusetts in a primary that's coming up here in weeks. So basically the dynamics of this race are Kennedy, without really offering any policy differences whatsoever, has just decided that he should really have this Senate seat.
He's just like, I'm Joe Kennedy, and this is my Senate seat by birthright.
I should have this seat. Now, Ed Markey, and this has become a real cause on the left because Markey really stuck his neck out for AOC on the Green New Deal, partnered with her on that when it was politically perilous, and went somewhat against the leadership both in the House and the Senate of the Democratic Party. So yesterday, we found out Nancy Pelosi is endorsing Joe Kennedy. All right, couple reasons why this is important. Number one, there's been this whole dynamic of the DCCC, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, saying that they will blacklist any vendors who work with progressive primary challengers of incumbents. So it used to be their at least claim was that they just back incumbents, period, end of story, and you're not allowed to challenge incumbents. Okay, so now the House Speaker is actively coming into this race and endorsing against an incumbent. AOC, rightfully so, was not impressed with this maneuver by Pelosi, and she sent out this tweet. No one gets to complain about primary challenges again. She has the little huggy emoji there. So DCCC, when can we expect you to reverse your blacklist policy against primary orgs? Because between this and the lack of care around Ilhan's challenger, it seems like less a policy and more a cherry-picking activity. Significant also because we've covered here how there's been an increasingly kind of friendly relationship between AOC and Pelosi. So this is you rarely see Democrats break ranks in the House and say anything negative about Nancy Pelosi. So this was a significant moment.
I think that is right. But at the same time, right, Pramila Jayapal, the chairwoman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, throw that up there on the screen, she endorsed Joe Kennedy, right? So I'm not really sure what's going on over there. I think why
let's just throw this up here too. Yeah. Bernie was asked and he declined.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
This is outrageous. There's no excuse for this. Declines to endorse Markey. And look, a lot of people were like, well, Markey never endorsed him in who cares? Like, are we doing this like politics of personal grievance? That's not supposed to be what we do on the left. And oh, by the way, this race is a major priority for the Sunrise Movement, which backed Bernie big time in his presidential campaign. I mean, this is really their top priority. And so you're kind of throwing them under the bus too. Who are your allies?
Are you an actual movement leader or are you a tit for tat? Bernie has always claimed to be an actual movement leader. This doesn't look like an actual movement leader. This doesn't look like, there's even a united progressive front in order to boost Ed Markey. Polls are not looking particularly great for him, and this very much could push him over the edge.
The recent polls have shown, so Kennedy had a huge lead early on in the race. He had like a 20-point lead. I mean, it was really looked like he was in good position. Those polls have switched now, and the latest polling, I believe, had Markey up. But it's definitely a close race. Markey is also, there's a real class dynamic here. Kennedy really has tried to position himself now as a progressive.
Right.
And so it's hard on the issue set to say, here's how they're different. And that's why Kennedy really hasn't made a policy case. But with Markey, you've seen when the chips were down, he stuck his neck out and backed AOC on the Green New Deal. And then there's this class dynamic of he thinks because his last name is Kennedy that he deserves the seat, that he owes the seat. Markey had actually a phenomenal ad that flipped the, very historic JFK quote on its head and really makes a sort of working class pitch in this race. Let's take a listen to that.
We got to absolutely crush Donald Trump in November. But if we're going to end this era of chaos, that won't be enough. We got to make sure President Biden signs the Green New Deal. We can't wait.
We got to have folks in the United States Senate who are willing to stand up for working people. That's who Ed Markey is. I need Ed Markey in the United States Senate.
We asked what we could do for our country. We went out. We did it. With all due respect, it's time to start asking what your country can do for you.
So there's an underlying class dynamic here too, and I just think it is absolutely inexcusable when you have a key race like this where it makes a difference which one of these people who you know you can count on, and Markey's voting record is not perfect, right? He's not the perfect like leftist or progressive I would want him to.
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing. And also, look, if the left goes to bat for him, then maybe that pushes him to have their back when the chips are down next time around. So it's an important race, and the fact that Bernie decided to sit on the sidelines is just profoundly disappointing. But clearly, Jayapal, others in the House came out yesterday to endorse Kennedy. Clearly, Pelosi is putting the screws to people and telling them to get on board.
That is actually the stunning part to me, is how brazen that Pelosi is willing to just be like, no, you know what? That whole thing I said about how we have to protect incumbents at all costs, people like Henry Cuellar and others, or Dan Lipinski, right? Both of those, who were endorsed and targeted by the Justice Democrats. But whenever it comes to this, Joe Kennedy, they're like, no, they'll throw it out the window. I was actually reading from Ryan. Apparently, Joe Kennedy didn't even want to raise money for Pelosi in 2018 in order not to anger Republicans. So I guess he's a very loyal House Democrat. And she still went out and endorsed him. So that's where I'm like, wow. You're being so brazen about this that you're willing to undermine one of your core talking points against many of the challengers, that you just don't care what they think. And then you get the chair of the Progressive Caucus to go out and endorse Joe Kennedy. That's something else.
Well, there's two pieces. Number one, for all the left's talk of solidarity, these centrist establishment types show way more solidarity when the chips are down than the left ever does. And if the left is ever going to actually have any power, they got to learn how to have some real solidarity in the breach, and we saw that lesson with Alex Morse as well in Massachusetts too. But the other reason they love Kennedy is because of his famous last name. He's a major fundraiser. He's a big draw.
That's right.
So they'd love to elevate him to the Senate.
Wall Street
even
loves
more
Kennedys.
Prominent position. Wall Street loves Kennedys, to be able to raise lots of money for the party. So that's the other reason why they're all in for Joe.
Yep, there you go.
More Rising for you after this.